Hello, members of the human family. Today is Tuesday, the 9th of July 2024. Welcome to the General Durability Podcast. I am Ajman Wugdi in Mohammedia, Morocco, and my guest today is Junior Schoeman from South Africa. He is here to help us in our quest for knowledge, ultimately self-knowledge, after a relevant experience in the mining industry. He has solutions for us to unlock the human potential. Hello, Junior. Welcome. How are you doing?
Hello, Afman. Yes, thank you for the invite. Yeah, I'm doing well.
Great,
Fresh in the
great.
morning, so we still have a day in front of us.
Yeah, great. How is the weather doing?
Well, it's my winter, it's your summer, so we're on opposite sides, but yeah, cannot complain. We at the coast, weather is mild, so can't complain too much.
Please, Junior, can you take a bit of time and tell us a little bit about yourself and how it came to be that you engage with the humanics and the work you are doing there?
Basically, if we have to reset right to the start, when I left school, I went for a psychometric assessment. And I walked away and they said to me, you can go do anything. They couldn't tell me what to go do. So I went through various phases. I went from wanting to be accountant to doing remote study. Then it was via mail and textbook, not via online. I couldn't make that because work 8 hours, study 6 hours at night. No young person can do that coming straight out of school. So I did my compulsory military service, finished that up. I wanted to go back into the studying. I did not have, as we say in Arabic, wasta. I did not have the connections to help me to get
Yeah,
into the
what's it?
program. And then I basically went for a computer interview and I ended up walking away with a mining bursary. Because when I left school, we didn't have the right mathematics. And when they did the assessment for the people to train, we're still talking DOS days, not even Windows, it was still DOS. So our mathematics then, they used mathematics as a measure of your potential. And because I didn't have a relevant mathematics, the advanced mathematics then, I failed that. And then an old uncle in a passageway said to me, come and speak to him. And I said to him, what for? He said, I want to speak to you. And then, well, basically 3 hours later, I walked away with a full bursary. So I spent plus 25 years in mining industry. I went through some personal upsets and things, major injuries. I had neck injury in 2000, and then I had a repeat injury which incapacitated me in 2001. I was temporarily disabled, paralyzed, semi-paralyzed, not fully paralyzed, but then I had to go back and work because the systems would not compensate me for my injuries. So I basically went from there into working outside South Africa because I couldn't get a medical certificate in South Africa to work in the mines. So I worked in Angola for a year. I then worked 2 years in Botswana. I worked for a year nearly in Namibia. My medical condition had improved. I came back to South Africa and worked here for a year. Then the platinum industry collapsed. And then I was recruited to start a new mine up in Saudi Arabia. So as you can see, I moved around quite a bit. We were the first Western mine in Saudi Arabia. And then after about 2 years, again, issues at the project site. I was challenging certain things. People don't like to be challenged. There was a merger. And then I was basically told to let go. So at that stage, Zahid Tractor, which is a Caterpillar dealer in Saudi Arabia, because I had a very good relationship with him, took me and said to me, we've got a client we want you to help sort out. I didn't know who the client was. And then a month later, as my visa was expiring for Saudi Arabia, they invited me to the client and introduced me to the client, which was one of the major original iconic construction companies in Saudi Arabia then. And this was 2011. And then we were supposed to restructure a business with 5,000 people. When we did the paper calculations, we needed 2,200. And when we started the process of cutting down the organization, then we discovered, like all organizations, they actually don't know what their talent is. So you leave it to a manager to see who got to go and who's got to stay. And then what we discovered is they were letting all the young people go and keeping the old people, because the argument was young people can find a new job, old people's not going to find a new job. But we had a dilemma. We had all new generation machines coming online. We had 400 new pieces of Caterpillar equipment waiting, roughly about 400 millions worth, just under 400 millions worth of equipment that we had to start. And then we stopped the whole process, and I went back to my mining history and I had a look, what did we use? And we use psychometrics, but I was always a customer, never the user. So we then brought it in and we learned how it works. So then we discovered that most psychologists don't understand psychometrics. They're just using it like a tool. They don't know how to make it work. So anyway, this forced us to learn what is psychometrics from the start. We worked with the suppliers, and that's basically where we got to today. So we went through over 20,000 people. We did the assessments, and then we started seeing patterns emerge, which is not available in normal studies. Because they've never had, always a study done academically has got an amount of people in the study of about 300 to 400, and then they only study one particular part. Now, we had 5,000 people. We had to discover who's the 2,200 we need to keep, and when we discovered we only had about 1,600 who closely matched what we needed. And then we had to go out and recruit 600. That meant that for 5 years, I was on and off traveling to India, Pakistan, North Africa, in the Middle East, and we were recruiting people and we were assessing them all the way. So that's basically where Humanics developed from. But Humanics in itself, the way it is today, developed because we then had to go deeper. It is one thing working with uneducated people, illiterate people. There's very precise tests that we use for them, but now we get into the complexity. And this is, how do you work with managers? How do you select the engineers who's got the right empathy and all those things? It's one thing testing somebody's brains and ability for mechanical and for, how can I say, cognitive function, hand-eye coordination, those things, those are easy to do. But when you get into the complexity of what makes relationships messy, which is the ability to have empathy, the ability to process complexity, all those things, everything changed. The whole scenario changed. So it was a whole new brand new learning curve. And that's basically how we got to the stage where we are today with Humanics. And this is why the focus is, before we start looking at people, if they are the right people for a job, we first got to understand what are they experiencing in the job. And that's basically the design of Humanics. We start from the experience and then we take it backwards, because every employer only employs the best people. So when they employed somebody, they were good for something and considered the best when they were employed. So we start from that, respecting, okay, the people were hired for a purpose. What did the company then do wrong with them? Why are they not functioning? And then that's why we start with experience, saying, what are you experiencing? How are you going through these things? And then we step back and we start saying, okay, let's start looking now at complexity and the job complexity and match that up and see where is the stress and dysfunction coming from. So that's basically how Humanics came about. So it's we built an app, 23 questions, that basically then explores that experience, explores if you're in burnout, engaged, disengaged, are you happy, unhappy, and then we map where that is, and we map the whole team, and we do it in a form of data, very easy data. And then from there we go on and we start speaking to people.
No, it's great, great. I do think that we should first of all start with defining complexity in this context. What do you mean by complexity in this context?
Well, complexity is something difficult to put a number on. What is complex? For me, something's easy, but when I say it to somebody else, they say, "Ooh, that's complex." Okay, so what we got to understand about complexity is that complexity is built up of layers. It's got multiple things when we have one item, like my pinky finger,
Yeah.
it's just one item. It's not complex. On its own, it's something easy to look at. But if I add another item to it, now I have to deal with two items. And then I add another item to it, and I have then three items. So what's the
Yes.
complexity? Three items? No, it's not.
No.
A smart lady explained it to me. She says, each one of these items have got a value of 1. So what we're dealing with is we're not dealing with three items that makes a complexity 3. We're dealing with the relationship between each item. So this item may have a relationship with a ring finger, yeah? And that is one relationship. The pinky may have with a middle finger a relationship. That's another relationship. The
Yes.
middle finger and the ring finger has a relationship. That's another relationship. So what we end up with is an exponential number. And that's how we got to look at complexity. So when we say we bring the fourth item into play, it's not a gradual jump in complexity, because now it causes a new chain reaction of connections between the different fingers. It exponentially pushes the number up, and just adding that one more item, maybe just that one item with that range of complexities, that takes something outside the range of somebody to be able to naturally process or adapt to it or understand something. So we go with 2. What is the next number? I think it's 4 something. And then the next number after that is 7 or 9. And then
Yeah.
from there, it just exponentially goes up as you add one item at a time.
Yes, yes, definitely. So, complexity is an important word, but we need to define another one, is psychometric. What do you mean by psychometric? Is it
Okay. Well,
psychological matrix, something like that?
so psychometrics is a metric as a measurement, and psycho refers to the psychology. So what are we measuring? So a lot of people, when you speak about psychometrics, they say, "Ooh, you're coming to read my mind."
Yeah.
They have all these funny things. What it basically means in a most first principles, and that's where we're working at. We're working with first principles. We're not working with uh, algorithms or behaviors or things like that. First principles means measuring what the brain is doing. How fast can it process data? How accurately can it process data? And what errors that it makes processing data? And then the next step is we measure how the cognitive, the brain, is connected to the eyes, the ears, the hands, the feet, and how it can, how can I say, manage those different human components, your extremities. How does it manage? So that is in the most rawest form uh, uh, what psychometrics does. But then there is more complex measurements, and these measurements are actually looking at the programming of the brain. Can it work with complex ideas? Can it work with patterns? Can it work with structures? Can it work with mechanical concepts? So these are things that are born into you. It's a God gift, okay? It's not something you can learn. It's your internal programming. But the problem is
Yes.
that we're sitting with is your programming is fixed. We cannot upgrade the programming. We can only learn what the pattern of the programming is and how to use it better. Your body and your brain is like your processor and your database and your memory in a computer. In a computer, we can upgrade those at any time or change it out. In a human, we cannot. They are fixed structures. So what we need to do is to learn how to optimally use the programming that's in there with a fixed structure, the hardware and the software that's available. What is it and how do we optimally use it?
Okay. Okay, very interesting. So each individual is different.